I'm sorry we're starting late. I want to respect everyone's time and go ahead and get started. First of all, I'm really humbled by the turnout. It's pretty incredible. And as Ben actually mentioned, I think it's a real testament to the GSB community. You guys are amazing. The fact that you would give up your time, come here and hear my harebrained scheme it really means a lot to me. And it should mean a lot to you too. That you can look around and see other people that care about one another so much that you can spend time doing this kind of thing. So thanks a lot. The reason we're here tonight is I wanted to, as many of you know, I've started this social venture called Nuru International. And I've had several people come up to me and ask me, how can I get involved? What can I do to be a part of this? And so what I thought we'd do is get together, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about, first of all, kind of where this idea came from. Why am I doing this? What Nuru is all about, how the business model works, how you can get involved in various ways, and I'm going to tell a few stories along the way too. And some of you have probably heard those stories, so I'm sorry ahead of time if you've already heard them. But they were really influential in my life and affected kind of how things came about. First of all, I want to explain what Nuru means. And by the way, it's Nuru, not Nuno or Menudo, which Michael Rogers thought it was. Nuru is Swahili for a small light in the darkness. And I wanted the name to be relevant to the people we're actually going to be going in partnership with. The people of East Africa to begin with, and it's analogous to those people to. Okay, I'm not going to take up too much of your time. It's going to be kind of a taco type format. I'm going to speak for about 20-25 minutes, and then anybody has questions, you can ask now, or I'm going to stick around as long as anybody wants to talk about this because it's kind of my life now. So the first thing I want to do is talk about, why am I doing this? And I think the best way to illustrate that is to tell a story. As you guys, some of you may not know, I was, in my old job, I was a Special Operations Platoon Commander for the Marine Corps. And when I was over in Iraq, during the Iraqi invasion, we were pushing north toward Baghdad. And, Saddam's regular army had kind of surrendered. Most of them had surrendered at this point. So his tactic, he was taking his special forces and pushing them south along the main highway that we were fighting up. Our guys were we were in the front, and they were going to every little farming community, and they were forcing these poor farmers that had nothing to fight the Americans. They had absolutely no training at all, and these farmers basically had the decision to make: do I go and do I fight the Americans and face certain death, or do I sit here and watch my wife and children get raped and murdered? So they took the option to sacrifice their lives and go and fight. So that sets up kind of what happened in this story. So we were in a defensive position facing north, and it was about 5 o'clock in the morning. I was on watch with some of my guys, and we were sitting there watching the road, and we saw a white car approaching from the north. And so we had actually been attacked many times recently by suicide bombers. They would run these vehicles in, they would blow them up, and it was taking out a lot of our guys. So I instantly took off running toward this car, and some of my guys followed along with me. And it was about 100 meters away. And as it got closer and closer, it stopped about 50 meters in front of our position, and the guy in the driver's seat got out and started sprinting toward us. And at this point, I think for sure this guy's got a bomb strapped to him. So we get ready to take this guy down, and as we move up, I look up and I see a big black truck come up behind that white car that had stopped. And 6 guys in black jumped out of the truck, ran up to the white car, and began shooting into the white car. At this point, the man who was running toward me, this poor Iraqi farmer, is what he ended up being, turned around and screamed in horror and started sprinting back toward the car. At this time, we all understood what was going on, and we engaged the Iraqi Special Forces guys that were shooting into that car. By the time I finally got up there, I couldn't get there fast enough. By the time I finally got up there, those 6 guys lay dead by the car. That poor man was standing there holding his 6 or 7-year-old girl who was bleeding profusely from the abdomen. The driver's seat, his wife lay dead with bullet holes in her head and her chest. And in the back, his baby girl, who was an infant, was riddled with bullet holes and had lost her leg. And so the man was beside himself, crying, and he was just wailing. And I looked in his eyes, and he looked at me, and there was such a look of hopeless desperation. And for the first time in the war, the war had been going for a while at this point, for the first time in the war, time stopped. And I looked up in the sky and I asked God, what is going on? And I let my weapon hang limp at my side, which never happens. And I just began to cry with this man. And it's at that moment I realized it's time for me to get in the fight and do something about this. I can't stand by any longer and let these people suffer like this. Because we had encountered time and time again poverty driving these people to do things and make decisions they had no other decisions to make. And so that was the beginning of my path, my walk down this path. After I got back from Iraq, I ended up coming to the GSB. I came to the GSB with an idea. I wanted to do something about poverty. I didn't know exactly what that meant. I didn't know what shape it was going to take. But I found a welcoming community and all the resources, amazing resources and ideas and people. I mean, as many of you know that had classes with me, I didn't know, well, I still don't know a whole lot, but I didn't know anything about business. And so I see some fellow poets in the crowd who suffered with me. Made it through. I did a lot of research though about poverty last year and good ways to alleviate poverty. And so in the spring, I partnered up with Tim Murphy and John Joseph in the second year to develop my business plan for how I was going to attack this. And that plan became solid, and then I took that plan, that idea, to Africa with me this summer. I did a lot of research there while I was there on the ground working with a pretty young startup that did poverty alleviation in Western Kenya. And I learned a lot. And so during nights I would come back from the field with the farmers, and I would work on later in the night on my business plan, revising it and revising it and revising it according to what I was learning. And I was able to devise a financial model as well for this business plan. So I came back with a pretty solid plan for what I was going to do. So the next part, what I want to do is I want to kind of walk through with you that model that I've come up with the help of many other people, and explain to you how it works and what it does, and how I think it's going to be hopefully contribute some small part to helping the poor. The way I'm going to do is I'm going to explain the three main strategic goals, and if I'm going to brush over this a little bit, and if anybody has any questions at all, I have a lot of resources that I can show you, the business plan, financial model, website, all this kind of stuff, or we can just talk about it. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. The first strategic goal is to conduct holistic community development. And what that means is we're going to go into small communities between 5,000 and 10,000 people initially. We're going to do an aggressive needs analysis on find out what the community needs from their mouths, not from our outside expert Western technology and advice. So we find out from the people what they feel they need, in combination with our research. And we begin to devise a model focusing on 5 areas: healthcare, education, water sanitation, agriculture, and small business development or microfinance. And I'm going to have an expert in each one of those areas on the ground that will partner with a counterpart in the local community to begin training them in one of those 5 areas. So we're going to set up what's called a community development committee of local leaders. Those guys are going to run the program the whole time. And the goal is we are going to exit after 5 years and leave a sustainable model behind in place that will be run by the community development committee. And we will have lifted the community, they will lift themselves up out of poverty in a sustainable way at that point, above the extreme poverty line, which is, as many of you know, is the $1 a day per capita income, okay, as defined by the World Bank. So our target is extremely poor communities that are below that mark, and also rural communities. And we're beginning in sub-Saharan Africa. And the reason for that is because Sub-Saharan Africa is the only area in the world where the percentage of the population that is below that line of extreme poverty is increasing. Every other area in the world is actually, we're making some headway toward the Millennium Development Goals.